Welcome back to our channels, Warriors. We are still growing. If you haven't had your comadre smash that subscribe button, go ahead and have her smash it right now. This episode right here is going to be a good interview with a special guest, right? Somebody from the opposite side of the United States, Florida, right? Florida.
3,000 miles.
There you go, dude. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for us? What's your name and where exactly in Florida are you from?
If you don't know, my name is PNO. I'm from Pompano, Florida. If you don't know what Pompano, Florida at, Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, all the same area. Born and raised down here. I just thought it would be interesting to chop it up with you because I got two bids behind my belt. I did 3 years in youthful offender prisons and 7 years in adult prisons. And you're a correction officer from LA, or not LA, I'm sorry, from California. And California's politics are so different. So different. So if you don't know about me, I'm a prison YouTuber. Type in Pino on YouTube, you'll find me just like that. Easy.
That's what's up. That's what's up. That's how we found each other. But you're right, man.
Yeah,
You're right. And viewers on
absolutely.
both sides. And even before I came onto YouTube, I always wondered how it got down on that side, man, or any other place other than California, because you're right, man. Any documentary that I've seen is just wild. It's just different, right? And you guys probably think the same thing about us over here on.
Yeah, y'all politics are wild. It's different over there, man. It's like it's I look at the documentaries and it's like, oh, the whites can only sit at this table during child time, and then the Chicos got to sit over here, and the blacks got to sit over here. It ain't. I've never seen that 10 years in prison in Florida prisons because I've been going to prison since my first time going to prison was like 2008, 2009.
Okay.
I was still shorty. They still sold cigarettes on the canteen when I went to prison. Um,
We're gonna
it's
dive
different.
we're gonna dive right into that. How old are you, by the way, man? You look young.
I'm 33, man. I'm pretty old.
Okay, okay. That's a compliment
Yeah.
though, man. That's a compliment.
It is. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So prior to you going into the correctional system, were you or are you part of a gang on the streets or where you're from?
Yeah, prior to going into the Department of Corrections, I was part of a gang. I was actually part of a California gang, that was brought to Florida by somebody. We ain't gonna dive into politics,
For
but
sure.
my first 3 years gang banging. Youthful offender prisons is really all gang banging. Like and it wasn't as bad in 2008 camps as far as gang banging as it is now as we're in 2023, and every camp in the state of Florida is banged out. Like every camp, you either in a gang or you're not, and if you're not, you pray, and that's just what it is on the compound.
Now, is it similar to California where it's street gang versus street gang or areas and
No,
territories? What's it like?
no. So that's a big difference. That's a good point you brought up, because in Cali, when you go to jail, I don't know about California prisons, but I know about jail. And when you go to jail, the Hoovers, they beefing with the neighborhoods. That's not how it is in Florida. In Florida, if you're up under that if you want a gang bang, it don't matter what set you are. If you're a Crip, you falling up under the Crip card, and that's just what it is. If you're blood, you falling up under the blood card, and the bloods usually they clean up their own mess. You know what I mean? They All the times I've seen bloods go to war in prison, they've always either been cleaning up their own people or going to war with like a white supremacist gang. So I've never seen them actually go to war with like GDs or Crips. I mean, it's happened, but it's not like a common thing. It's more of a mutual respect thing on the compound.
So they do have white supremacist gangs in Florida.
They have a gang called Unforgiven UF.
Unforgiven?
It's up under another branch of skin. I don't want to say skinheads. I don't want to say Aryans because I
Right,
know they're two different things.
right,
I
right.
don't want to mix politics. I really don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to that. I just know that the only white organization in Florida prisons is Unforgiven, and they're up under another branch of some white supremacy gang.
For sure, for sure. Yeah,
So,
we don't got to dive into politics, man. It's just touching on subjects here, which
right,
is interesting in itself, man.
right,
It is
it
it
is.
is educational.
They're
Um,
probably the least populated gang on
are
on
they?
every compound. Yeah,
What would
they're
you
probably the weaker gang on every compound.
what would you say is the most populated gang on every compound?
Bloods and Zoes.
And by
And when I say Zoes, Zoes is a gang that started in Broward County. It's from Broward County. It started in prison, but the man who started it is from Broward. So a lot of people from like Broward, Dade, Palm Beach, where I'm from, they go to prison. They become ZMF. What it is. It's a Florida gang that the Zoes they do their own thing. But when you get the compounds, it's like 60, 70 of them. It's no joke.
so when you say compound, do you mean a prison?
Yeah,
Okay,
we
that's
call them
already
compounds. We call them compounds or camps over here. This is
okay,
only
cool.
one prison in the state of Florida is actually called a prison on the title, and that's Florida State Prison.
Okay. Is that where the hardcore people go or is just a different prison?
Back in it was the first prison built in
Oh, okay.
Florida. So one of the first prisons built in Florida. So like when Florida has the death penalty and all that shit, so that's where they sent them was to FSP, Florida State Prison, when they got the
Cool.
DP and major charges like that. But I heard somebody say in California they go by levels. The camps go by levels. I mean, I imagine they have some type of levels to the camp system in Florida, but they have like camps that they'll send. They have site camps and regular camps and disciplinary camps, basically.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And the site camp can be a disciplinary camp. Like I was at Santa Rosa Correction Institution, which is they house TCU, like the crazy people who are on close management who've been cutting themselves.
Yeah.
They've been behind the door for like a year or two, and they'll cut themselves to go to the psych ward. Santa Rosa houses that. It houses close management. It houses a lot of different things. So I've been to quite a few camps. It's no telling where you're gonna land.
There's no
Honestly,
telling.
yeah, you can't. There's like I don't want to be wrong because prisons get shut down every day and they get opened up another day, but
Right.
there's like 40 to 60 prisons in the state
Wow.
of Florida.
That's a lot, man. That's a
So,
lot.
well, yeah, I mean, Florida's pretty big.
Right.
It takes just to get out of Florida into Georgia. It takes 9, and then if you 9 hours, if you want to go back up through the Panhandle, that's gonna take you like 11 hours to get through the whole Panhandle
For sure, for sure.
from where I'm from South Florida.
So, is there a reception type before you get housed at one of those institutions, like where they maybe go over your case factors, maybe they go over your history, and then see maybe where they're gonna put you?
Yeah, there's a classification period when you first get to prison. Everybody has to go to a reception center. We have in South Florida, we have in Dorrell, they have South Florida Reception Center. So if you got locked up in Broward, Dade, Palm Beach, or Fort Myers, or the Keys, which is that's rarity because the Keys doesn't have really a big crime rate. If you get locked up in those four counties, I think the Keys is Monroe County. If you get locked up in any one of those counties, you go to South Florida Reception Center. If you get locked up in Central Florida, you go to Central Florida Reception Center. Then you have Lake Butler, which is like a regional medical center, as well as like if you get your jaw broke or you get airlifted, if you don't go to the hospital, you're going to Lake Butler.
Okay.
So Lake Butler is a little bit towards North Florida. Then you have North Florida Reception Center, which is also it used to be called Washington CI because it's in Washington County. So there's 4 reception centers in the state of Florida.
What is the probability that when you touch down in a reception, you're gonna run into somebody that you know? Is it likely or not likely? Like a homie from the streets.
It's yeah, no, that's a high probability because you got to understand you're waiting to go to your main compound. You could wait there 40. Some people wait there 60 days. You know
Okay.
what I mean? The longest I've waited in reception was like 49 days, but I've seen people wait 60 or better just to go to a compound. And you got to understand you're on the dorm. You got 3 dorms. You got at South Florida Reception Center, you got I think it's JEF or something because they get condemned and opened up every other fucking day. Um, I'm serious. I'm serious. They have like roach problems and all type of
Oh
shit.
man.
We'll get into that later. It's infestations. Dorms get condemned, but have pods where it's side one, side two, side three. I know you know how I don't know what the dorm would be called. The officer station right here. You have 1, 2, and 3, and the officer station can see all 3 wings, and the middle wing is a little bit bigger. Um, so that's basically how South Florida is, and all the sides come out together. So you're gonna see everybody from like Broward, Dade, or Palm Beach or Fort Myers that you might have known on the street, that you might have grew up with that got a prison sentence too. So it's a high probability. When I went to prison on both bids, I seen somebody in South Florida Reception Center I knew from the street. So
Cool, cool. Is the movement limited in reception versus when you get to an actual compound? Meaning less yard time, less day room time, less recreational stuff.
so at South Florida, they like to if you don't have a call out, because you when you're going through reception, you're gonna have a lot of call outs. You're gonna have like medical, classification, mental health. They're gonna try to get you to see everybody, to just to figure everything out with you. Don't have a call out, you have to go to rec, and there is no shade on the rec yard. And I've seen people's heads blow up from the sun, like not blow up physically, but like swell. Sun. They get sun poisoning from
Oh
because you're
man.
not allowed to go inside the dorm. You can't go if you don't have a call out. You have to be on that rec yard all day from the morning till they call lunch. Then after lunch, they'll call rec again, and you got to get your ass back out the dorm and go
Okay.
to rec. So first half and second half, which is pretty much all day in the sun with no type of suntan. You gotta remember you're coming from the county jail. You got no type of suntan lotion. You've probably been sitting in the county for quite a few months, so you probably pale as fuck.
Right.
So when you get out there in that Florida sun, out there in that Miami sun, man, I've seen people get sun spots and poisoning on their head. Their shit swell up. People
Yeah.
faces start flaking. Bad.
Yeah, I've been to Miami in the summer, man. It was no joke. It was no joke. It was hot. It was wild too, but um
You can't. There's no hanging out in the dorms in reception. You got to get the fuck out the dorm or go to a call out.
so in a California reception, I never worked a reception prison because they got prisons dedicated for that. But it's usually people trying to establish, especially back in the day, not getting into politics, but people trying to establish areas, establish control. Is Florida reception a process of establishment or more of a just hanging out type of deal?
Florida reception's wild, man, because there's no there's so when you get the main compounds, you have what they call a structure when it comes to gangs. Um, you have to move with that structure, or you're nothing on the compound, and that's just what it is. And you might have a target on your head if you don't move with the structure. Um, Especially if you're claiming a gang and the Bloods have a certain structure and this is the head and this is what you have to do, you have to fall into a position. So that's how it is at main compounds. But when you're at the reception centers, it's just wild. It's considered like the wild wild west because there's no politics, there's no rules. I've seen gang members run down on other gang members without consulting the head or anything like that. I've seen wild shit. So there is like there's no politics or rules or anything at South Florida. And the main reason is because of the people coming and going, the fluctuation of people
Right.
coming and going. So there's no way to actually the people that do have their feet planted or something established at a reception center would be the permanents, and they're kept separate than the transit. So people that are going through reception are kept separate than permanent.
So you seem like a sharp dude, like you can handle your own, right? And you got the street smarts and the wherewithal. What is something wild to you? Something that you see and you're like, man, damn, that's wild, right? In reception.
So, because I was thinking of, you probably see me thinking of it because, so I was at South Florida and before I got this is my second bid, so I'm going to prison for a second time. I'm over 25 now, so I know I'm going to an adult camp, and I know in my head adult camp is going to be way sweeter than YO camp because in YO camps, as soon as you get off the bus, you got to fight. That's just what it is. You got to fight. These motherfuckers are standing at the window picking you out coming off the
Man,
bus. Hey, like, I got him. I got him. So, that YO. So, I'm on the bus, the Bluebird, coming from the county jail, going to South Florida Reception Center. We're going to prison. I think there was like 12 people on the bus. But there was a kid directly in front of me. He was like 24, I want to say. And like, man, how is it in prison? He only had like 2 years or some shit. He's like, how is it in prison? He seemed kind of nervous and shit. So I was like, bro, you straight? You 24? They're probably gonna just classify you as an adult because they're not gonna waste their time sending a 24-year-old to a wild camp. I said, you're gonna be good as long as you stay to yourself, bro. You don't fuck with nobody. Don't get into the three G's, gangs, gays, and gambling. You good. And really laced him up. I had some prior experience, but my prior experience was rough. It was with youthful offenders. You know what I mean? So I knew in my head nothing could be worse than going to OYO camp right now. You know what I mean? You going to adult camp, you can stay up out the way for the most part. And I told him that, and we get off the bus, we go through TNR, we end up going through to the same dorm, and they call Chow. When we come back from Chow, he goes into his room, and three people run in his room and rob him for his brand new blues. He had nothing. He didn't even have anything. He just got off the bus, so they robbed him for his blues, his stamped envelopes, and his postcards that he came from the county jail with. But by knife point, then when he tried to get up out of the cell away from him, they slapped the shit out of him, hit him with the poker one time in the side, and made him run to the booth and start slamming on the booth. So he ran to the booth, he slammed on the booth. One of the dudes that ran in the cell went to confinement. Not all three of them didn't go to confinement. Only one went to confinement, and he went to confinement, I imagine, under like some type of protective custody until they moved him somewhere or some shit like that. But it was just wild because it was like, bro, like 2 hours before I was on the bus letting him know he's gonna be straight, bro.
Right.
And we at an adult camp. We're not at a YO camp. We're at an adult camp, and I'm letting him know we gonna be straight, man. You good, bro. Just chill out. I'll come check on you later on in the day or whatever. And it didn't even get to that point before they ran into his cell and robbed him. It's all on you. You've been a correction officer, so it's all on people how they portray themselves, and the way he was portraying himself on the bus is most likely. I didn't keep my eye on him the whole time, but it's most likely the way he portrayed himself when he went to the dorm. And if you portray yourself like that, if you walk like a sheep and you talk like a sheep, the wolves are coming out.
Like a victim. He portrayed himself like a victim.
Absolutely, like a victim.
There you go, man. And I was thinking, you said he didn't have nothing, but it was more probably of a
Nothing.
establishment of dominance, right? Predatorial behavior. Like, hey, we're here, like you
Correct.
said, the wolves. So
Correct.
that is similar, right? California. You act like a victim, you look like a victim, you're gonna get got. You're gonna get got whether you're a guard, an officer, or an inmate, right? It's better. You best pretend, right? You better act like
I mean, it's better that he got that type of treatment at a reception center, because if he would have been on a main compound and he would have been acting like that, they would have took his ass.
right,
There
right,
there was no, and I'm just being blunt about the
right.
situation. It sounds crazy, it sounds horrible, but it just is what it is. If you portray yourself like a gazelle, man, they gonna pounce.
Real quick, were they different races, the suspects and the victim?
Yes, they were different races. Yeah, there's no race politics like that. There's
So
no race politics.
so was the victim different race than the three suspects?
He was a Latino. The three suspects were black.
Okay. Do you know, or let's talk about politics and race in California, right? Do you know that in a general population, that would not transpire because of the self politics? You kind of understand what I'm saying?
Correct. Yeah, no, I understand that 100%. That's why I said the politics are way different from the West Coast to the East Coast, because
In your
it's that
opinion,
wouldn't have happened out there.
is that a good thing or a bad thing, or how do you see it?
So let me explain that. At certain compounds in Florida, that wouldn't have happened either, and it
Okay,
wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been on a race card. It would have more been like where I've been. Every main compound I've been on, adult system, stick together, and that's just what it is. And it's crazy, but that's just what it is. And it sounds crazy, but they would rather put the person that, like the gazelle, up under their wing
right.
and not harm him at all. Just basically leech off him whatever commissary he has, whatever his people have. They will just use him like that, but they won't hurt him. Then give him to another. The Latinos are like that in Florida prisons. They're like that. Latinos do not. They don't play about their own race, and that's just what it is. However, situations where you have different gangs as well. In Florida, like I said, Florida's banged out. You have nietas on the compounds. You have Latin kings. You know what I mean? I'm just speaking on the Latin gangs. You know what I mean? You
Right,
have the 13s.
right.
And these are all Florida gangs that are in Florida prisons. So you never know what could happen in that situation. Um, it all depends on where you at. And like I said, South Florida Reception Center, that's the wild, wild west. There's no politics there.
So my thought behind that whole concept, right, even coming from California, was that, like you said, yeah, they'll embrace them, right? But my whole concept is we have to do this. They must do this to have strength in numbers, right? Or else everybody would get got. It would be a free for all. Does that make sense? Like, hey, if we don't take care of our own, we're all gonna get got
Yeah,
individually.
yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. But it's just like I said, South Florida, it's a reception center. There's really no politics. There's really
Okay.
no organization. You got
Okay.
people that just got sentenced to 60 years plus in prison, and
Mm.
they have a lot on their head, and they come there and they go crazy. So I've seen like the craziest shit at receptions. But like I said, I've only spent a small amount of time at receptions. I've actually been to every reception center in the state of Florida,
Man.
and I've been to South Florida Reception Center. I've been to Orange County Reception Center, which is OCI. I've been to North Florida Reception Center, and I've been to RMC, which is Lake Butler Reception Center. So I've been to all the reception centers in the state of Florida, and it's pretty much the same all around. It's the wild wild west.
So walk me through an actual compound, one that sticks out in your memory, one where you did a lot of time, one where it was like, okay, this is it, man. I made it to the big house.
The worst compound I've been on was ACI, Appalachian Correctional Institution. Um, it's a war compound. 6 months. I'm gonna just give you a synopsis. 6 months after I EOS, my homeboy was stabbed to death. I got him tatted right here. I got an ant right here for him. Because that was his name, Ant. But he was stabbed to death, and it was just so crazy because when I was on the compound 6 months prior, we had the numbers. There was no that wouldn't have happened. So compounds in Florida can flip.
Mm.
Here it can be the Bloods, and I'm pretty sure you've seen that in
Yeah.
institutions as a correction officer. It can be one year, it can be the Bloods. The next year, it can be the Zoes that have the numbers. The next year, it could be the Crips that have the numbers.
Yep.
And that's just how compounds are. But ACI was probably the wildest compound I've ever been to because it was just so much going on. It was wide open. And when somebody tells you wide open, I'm pretty sure you know wide open. There's phones, there's dope,
Right.
there's people getting stabbed. It is what it is. It's a wide open compound. When I first got to ACI, because I came from another compound, people on the compound already know me. Um, that's gonna happen when you do over like 5 years in Florida Department of Corrections, I'm gonna say, and you go from one compound to the next. You have people that was at your compound before, or they might have got a negative transfer to a new compound, and you might have landed at that compound. So if you're a Crip and you were a Crip at your last compound, you might as well go to your next compound saying you Crip too. Cause then it ain't no, oh, I'm not Crip anymore. Cause somebody gonna recognize you and somebody gonna be like, hey man, he was just banging Crip over there at Holmes Correctional Institution. Now he here and he say he this, that, and the third or something. So, but ACI all in all was wild. We had when I first got there, there was no structure on the compound, and it was due to the fact that like 60 people had got shipped, including heads of organizations and everything. So as of every other organization was structured. As far as the Crips, it was a little loose. There was no structure. There was no meetings, mandatory meetings. There was no mandatory workouts. There was none of that. So when I got to the compound, me and a couple of the lokes, we got together and we basically created a structure. 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you got to go to rec, you got to work out. No drinking, no smoking, no none of that. We had to stop it because the compound was so wide open. You had people getting high on K2. You
Right.
had people getting drunk, and that's not militant. That's not how you can move on that type of compound.
So there are some similarities, right? There are some similar. There is structure. There's structure. Like you said,
Yeah,
I gave you a thumbs up because you said militant and you said structure. That is needed, and you know damn well that is needed. Like you said, it
yeah,
cannot prison cannot be a free for all for the masses because you're gonna have some
no,
serious issues. Um.
no, because like at the end of the day, if I have 4 homies on a compound, and it's only 5 of us, which is a very low number. I'm just throwing that out to be for an example. And 4 of my homies are over there getting high. It leaves me by myself to defend what we stand for. You see what I'm saying? They're over
Yep.
there getting high. They're inactive. They can get got any second. Now I gotta watch over them. So that eliminates the whole drug fact. There's no drugs. You're not allowed to use drugs in the structure. You're not allowed to use alcohol. If you do drink alcohol, you just can't get drunk. If you get drunk, you face the possibility of getting violated.
That's very informative, man. Very informative. Now, you mentioned, did you say that your homie got stabbed to death in prison?
Yeah, Anthony Spencer.
Okay,
It's you can look it up. He got stabbed to death.
rest in
Uh,
peace to your homie, man. And when you
Yeah,
said that, that took me off back. I didn't realize whether I'm
he didn't even
naive.
get stabbed. He didn't even get stabbed over gang politics. He was the head, and he didn't even get stabbed over gang politics. He got stabbed over $100 wire.
Wow.
Gone wrong. $100 wire gone wrong. Went to the dorm to address the issue. It ended up being two or three people that attacked him while he went to the dorm. They stabbed him. He tried to make it up out the dorm. He fell out. Died in the dorm. He fell out from blood loss.
Did all three individuals, do you know, did they have weapons?
I know for a fact they won't release the video.
Right,
FL, what is it called? FDLE or whatever, Florida Department of Law Enforcement. They won't, because that's who responds to prisons when somebody dies.
right.
They won't release the video because they said it's an active investigation, which I'm pretty sure until the person who is facing the murder charge, because they said they got the person. So until the person who's facing the murder charge gets tried and convicted, they won't release the video. The Department of Corrections won't release the video.
All that makes sense. Does everybody stay strapped? Meaning, does everybody carry a piece?
Yeah,
Everybody?
yeah, pretty much. If you're in a gang, yeah, you carrying a piece.
Okay,
If
okay,
you gang bang and like when I got the ACI and I didn't have a piece, the Lokes found out I was Loke, even though there was no structure. I still had a Loke come up to me and, hey, here.
okay, cool.
Because there's people that you got to understand, you're in prison. You got motherfuckers, especially at ACI. Like I said, ACI was wide open. There was knives everywhere. 90% of the fucking compound had a knife. But partially due to the building being so old and people being able
Yeah,
to tear off pieces of the building and make weapons. Um, but I got the ACI immediately. I got handed a knife. You got to understand, people have 2, 3 knives.
damn,
You know what I mean? It's nothing to give your homie a knife.
damn.
So
So,
yeah,
so with that being said, on California, our level 4 yards, which is our max security, more than likely, they all got knives, right? That's just the facts.
right.
That's just facts of the matter. And or one within reach, buried on the yard, one easily accessible.
Well, you have prisons in the state of Florida that are sweet. You have prisons that you don't have to carry a knife all the time.
Okay,
But like I've been classified as a gang member since youthful offender prison. So every time I could hope when I'm in reception that they'll send me to one of these sweet camps like Moorhaven or South Bay or one of these sweet camps where shit's really not going down at, and it's more laid back, or maybe a work camp because the work camps are more sweet, they're laid back. I could have hopes of being sent there, but
right.
I've gotten a negative transfer twice, so
So,
that's an adult camp. In
right,
YO camp, I got a negative transfer twice.
man. So you don't got to dive into details on this one, on this question. But over here, they have, like, if an individual has a knife, right, and they want to just send a message, it's called a checking, right? In Spanish, it's called a chequeada, meaning they're gonna go put a couple holes in you, but their intent is not to kill you. Their intent is to send a message. Now that is different from actually going to take somebody's life. They also got that going on. Is there anything similar to that?
Nah, nah. If you coming with a knife, you coming to take a life.
you
Um,
know,
Never seen it. I mean, I've seen people get fired up with locks and shit like
yeah,
that, and that's a possibility. Like I had landed at a work camp at one time in my bid, and at the work camp, like I said, work camps are supposed to be sweet. They're supposed to be laid back, but violence can erupt anywhere. And at the work camp, what happened was this dude had a friend from the street. He was the dude who had the friend from the street. The friend from the street was in the dorm. The dude was in the kitchen. The dude in the dorm ended up getting jumped by some Zoes. And when he came back out the kitchen, when he got off of work detail and he came back out the kitchen, people were telling him, his homeboy was like, nah, don't worry about it. I handled up. It's cool. I fought all three of them. It's whatever. He wasn't going for it. He had 10 years, and that's the maximum time you can have at a work camp. He had 10 years. He had the 10 piece. So he wasn't going for it. He went and dropped 2 locks in a canteen bag, and he waited till the motherfucker was real deal. He waited till the motherfucker was just sitting there listening to his headphones, walking down the aisle, and he broke his whole jaw with 2 locks in a canteen bag. So
Man,
I've seen violence erupt in different ways to where it's not trying to kill you, but nine
right.
times out of 10 in Florida, if you come in with a knife, you gotta handle up. You trying to sense it because a lot of one thing we really do, and it's not just one organization; it's almost every organization. If you're gonna get him, you got to get him, and you got to get him from around here, and that's just what it is. Because he's not gonna stab me for you stabbing him. He's not gonna stab our homie over here for you stabbing him. He's not gonna do none of that. He's not gonna come sneak any one of us. So when we take action, he's got to go.
That makes sense. I mean, that makes sense. Um, Large scale riots. Do they have riots? I'm talking about 200 men fighting each other, 300 men fighting each other.
It's not. Okay. So in youthful offender prison, let me explain the difference. And this is the difference between youthful offender prison and adult camps. I've been in a riot in youthful offender prison, and it was inmates fighting inmates. It was the GDs and the cutthroats that were tied flags, and they were fighting the Zoes and the Bloods who were tied flags. And of course, the Crips were tied flags with the GDs and the Cutthroats. Cutthroat is another gang that originated in Florida, or it might have originated somewhere else, but it's a major gang out of Jacksonville, Florida. So anybody from Jacksonville that come to Florida prison, most likely they become Cutthroat Committee. Um, so that riot was nothing but inmates fighting inmates. It was inmates firing up each other because it was a war between gangs, and it was a youthful offender prison. When I went to adult camp, riots I seen never participated in inmates on inmates. It was always inmates on officers because of how we were being treated. For instance, I was at Holmes Correctional Institution, and this is why I got my negative transfers because of the riot that happened. Um, it was against the police. We barricaded the dorm, put bunks, the single man bunks in front of the doors so they couldn't come in the doors, tied sheets over the officer station, broke out all the
Damn.
cameras, dug a hole in the roof from side one to side two so side two could mingle with side one. They had to climb through the roof. And it was like that for a good 48 hours until they send rapid response team in and they start shooting fucking canisters through the window and shit. But it's more people protesting or rioting or doing a sit down because of the treatment in
Right.
Florida. Because there's a lot of officers in Florida that beat the fuck out of inmates. I myself have been beat in handcuffs. There's officers that like in the kitchen, and I wouldn't even say officers. It could be the kitchen staff, which is a whole separate entity than correction officers. They're kitchen staff. They're hired by the Department of Corrections, but they're civilians to like nutritionists and stuff to balance your meals and whatever to do the child hall thing. And I've been at camps where this nutritionist is like strictly by the book, so our portions are like
Yeah.
this big. You see what I'm saying? And people are starving on the compound and they don't like it. So the officers are not doing nothing, and then that's what creates. It's like a boiling point. I know
Right.
you've seen it before.
I have. So is that a buildup through a period of time, or can it crack off? Can you have an inmate in handcuffs just getting beat up by the officers, by the guards? Other inmates see that and immediately take
No,
action.
you can't have nobody see it. Usually, it goes down in a cell. They'll bring you to the cell or to confinement, and then beat you in confinement, and
Okay.
then hide you for a couple weeks.
Oh.
They'll have one of their nurse friends come out and say that you're okay. You passed your physical. You can be in confinement, and then you'll just sit in there for like 2 3 weeks and heal up.
So then somebody will return back from confinement, and then you get multiple people coming back. Hey, they did me like this. They did me like this. And then the troops rally
They'll
up.
they'll probably transfer you because after
Oh,
they beat you, they'll write it up as a battery on a correction officer. They'll write it up as you swung on them and they retaliated or whatever they did. They restrained you. But most likely it'll be a negative transfer. You won't go back to that compound if everybody sees you get beat in front of the officers. But that won't happen. Like, I mean, you can get jacked up, you can get cuffed up, put against the wall and talk shit to, and everybody's not going to jump in or nothing like that. But if there's 3 or 4 officers physically beating the inmate in front of somebody, they know better than to do that because nobody, no gang, no organization, no No, nobody's gonna go for that.
Right. No, I hear you, man.
They like to do it when they take you to confinement and shit like that. And it's not every officer, because there's officers that, you go to prison and there's officers that are cool. And a lot of people on prison channels, they won't tell you this. There's officers that are cool. Yeah, they're the police. At the end of the day, you have to look at them like police. When they
Right.
come in the dorm, you have to shout out 36, water hot, or throw down or something so the whole dorm knows that the police is in the dorm. But they might be cool. They might call you people on the street, let them send a message for you. They might do something for you. It might be cool. But then you have officers that are like, when I think about it, one bitch comes to mind. She was this overweight black chick that worked in the officer station, and she was devil. She was the devil. If the dorm was too loud, she would cut the AC off. So we fry. We're in Florida. If you cut the AC off, it's a wrap. You fry. The boiling point goes over to 100. So the winter, if it because when I was in ACI, we're in the Panhandle. It gets down to 20 degrees. You know what I mean? So in the winter, if the dorm's too loud or if it's making too much noise, boom, she cut the heater off, cut the phones off, cut stuff. Just start taking the little things that we have, and it sounds crazy because when I'm saying the dorm gets too loud, the dorm don't even be loud. Don't even be loud. And she'll cut this bitch off and make people fry.
So
The devil.
I'm glad we're having this conversation, man, because I did work in the prison system for 16 years. I know how volatile, and it doesn't take much. Right now, you just explained that it gets extremely hot in Florida, and I know because I went to Miami, right? That they sometimes shorten you on the meals and or just give you the little bare minimum requirement, right? So you guys are hot, hungry, angry, and I could easily see, man, right? I'm not making
The
excuses,
boiling
but
point.
I could easily see that, man. I'm getting chills just thinking about it because, boom, I wouldn't
Yeah.
like working in an environment like that, man. Not like that. How you just said it.
It can be numerous things. I mean, I've seen a boiling point happen because we haven't went to canteen in a month.
Yeah,
They haven't opened the window in a month. And that'll make motherfuckers boil over. It's like, dude, you're already starving me. I can't buy my own food. I got money in my account. I've seen boiling points, but like I said, at adult camps, when I seen riots, full on riots, it was never inmate on inmate like it was when I was at youthful offender prison. It was, inmate on officer. Now I've seen situations pop off where it's like three or four people fighting another three or four people.
right.
I mean, I've seen that pop off, but that's not considered a riot to me. That's just considered something popping off.
It, I don't know if you've seen my videos, but do you? Is there? I talk a lot of issues about the California prison system. Is there issues with the Florida prison system?
Oh, there's a ton of issues. There's a ton of them. There's a ton of them. The main issue right now in Florida prisons is lack of officers. They don't have they have lack of correctional officers, which it causes disruption in the system because they don't have people to take you to canteen. They don't have people to watch the yard. They don't, and then inmates start getting bucked on yard, bucked on canteen, and then, like I said, it starts turning into a boiling point. So yeah, there's tons of issues that the Department of Corrections should work on. Um, One of the things that I majorly preach that the Department of Corrections should work on is reintegrating people into society the proper way, rehabilitating people. I mean, if you got a life sentence, you got a life sentence. It is what it is. You're in there for life. But there are so many people in the Department of Corrections in Florida that they do 3 years, 5 years, 2 years, maybe six, and they come out worse.
Yeah,
Come out worse than what they went in, and there's a major reason behind why they come out worse because it's prison in Florida. It's not rehabilitation. They don't rehabilitate you in Florida. You go to prison and you're around motherfuckers that were doing the same thing or worse than you on the street, and they're still doing it in prison. So you get exposed to a lot. If anything, you become more street savvy when you go to prison. It
Ca-
sounds crazy, but you become more savvy with people, with the streets, with how you can talk, communicate with people, how you can manipulate officers, inmates. It's
I hear you.
crazy. It's a whole nother world.
I get it. California used to be like that, right? And the interview and the viewers can argue this way or the other, but there is a big emphasis on rehabilitation services, but they went too far this way. You know what I mean? We were here, we should have went here, and they went too far this way. Now it's disastrous because now they're mixing
We have a
gangs and races that should not be mixed.
Yeah, yeah. We have a reentry program that you have to sign up, or you have to do. I think it's like your last 90 days or something in prison. But literally all they do is give you a book and tell you complete this book, and that's it. That's your reentry certification that you got properly rehabilitated to get into society. You do a book for 90 days.
How are the mentally ill inmates treated in there? Like the actually mentally ill inmate, are they separated from regular general population?
It depends. If you're on psych meds, no, but like actually like out your mind mentally ill, they're put in a unit like I was mentioning earlier at Santa Rosa. They have a TCU unit, which is therapeutic care unit. I don't know what
Yeah.
it stands for, but a majority of the people in that unit come from close management, CM. Whether and CM in Florida means you stab somebody, you did something violent enough for them to put you behind the door by yourself for a couple years. You see what I'm saying? Or with a roommate, depending on the severity of the violence. Um, People that are behind the door for 2 years and they go back shit, they start cutting themselves. So Santa Rosa has the TCU unit. Then Dade CI has the psych unit for the whole state of Florida. So like if
Oof.
I'm at if I'm at let's say I'm at Wacola and I cut myself in front of the officers or do some crazy shit and blood starts flying everywhere, they're gonna put me in handcuffs, they're gonna put me on a bus, and they're gonna send me all the way down to South Florida Reception Center into the psych ward until I can reintegrate into the population.
Real quick, I gotta throw this in there because I don't know how it goes over there. If you, as an inmate, got your fingernail, walked up to an officer or to a psychologist and went like this to your wrist and said, "Look, I'm attempting to kill myself," what would those two staff members tell you, or what would transpire if anything?
They'll put you in handcuffs immediately. You'll get put in handcuffs and then you'll get brought to they have a like a it's like a window cell inside medical, and they'll bring you to that window cell, or they'll bring you to what they call a suicide cell. So a suicide cell, the sink, the buttons might be shaved down.
Right.
The vent might be shaved and then molded so you can't wrap anything around the vent. So it's basically a cell, but it's suicide prevention, and you don't get a blanket, you don't get a mat, you get a turtle gown, a little green turtle gown, and a turtle blanket. And the reason I know so much is because I was an orderly when I was at Santa
Mm.
Rosa for the TCU unit. That's why I know. So I've had to clean blood. I was blood. They call it, what is it? Bloodborne pathogen
Yeah.
or whatever they take. Yeah, so you could clean up other people's blood and shit and piss and the nasty shit.
Oh
I
man,
ended up
real.
going to confinement from that job.
Oh
I ended
man.
up going to confinement from that job.
Okay, real quick. The reason I brought that up is because yeah, well, I seen a lot of that with a fingernail. It used to drive me crazy because it's a lot of paperwork on our end, and I would look at the psychologist and be like, really, really, it was a fingernail, but that's understandable, right? So I've talked about a lot of gruesome, bloody scenes on my channel. People have been asking on my comments, who cleans it up, right? Give me an experience on that. What you would think when you would see a mess and while you were cleaning it, what was going through your mind?
Man, it depends what kind of mess. If it's feces or blood. Because there's a big difference. I've had to clean up blood where the whole cell was full of blood. And put a mask on, put some gloves on, and I'm in there with a mop bucket and I'm getting it all into the mop bucket. All the blood, I'm soaking it up, putting it in the mop, squeezing it out into the mop bucket, get all the blood off the floor, and eventually bleach the whole cell and do what I got to do to clean the cell. But feces? Man, no, bro, no way, man. Feces is so bad, bro. And I've only had to clean feces one time. And after that, it was a wrap. It was like, nah, y'all can just take me to confinement or find a new orderly to do this because I'm not doing it. I'm talking about, man, that dude shit in his cell in confinement. Dude shit in his cell and wipe all over the walls. You walk into that confinement dorm, you can smell it from the door, bro. And this is behind the cell all the way in the corner. It is so horrible, bro. Oh man.
As you bring that up, man, I can smell it. I can smell it. It's you're right. It can be in a cell over here on one opposite end of the building, and it goes through down the hallway, out. Hopefully, I'll never have to smell shit again unless my dog takes a shit on the carpet, right? And it is getting older,
Right.
but man, it is awful. You're right. It is awful. Oh,
It's the worst thing.
you know what's bad, man, is when they cover themselves in that, and then we have to go in there and restrain them for the cell extraction or mandatory medications. You know they'll get court ordered by a judge.
To get a shot in the
Correct.
ass. Yep.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Oh
I've seen
man,
it.
I never had to do that. I would always go outside and get some fresh air, man. But
I've seen it.
anything that you would like to share thus far that I haven't brought up yet, and then you could ask me those questions that you had been wanting to get at.
Nothing really. I'll just throw a few questions your way if you're
Shoot
cool
it,
with it.
shoot it.
What what was it like in the military? Like, because I've wanted to go to the military when I was a kid, but I always got in trouble and I ended up fucking up as soon as I turned 18. So it was just a wrap for me. I couldn't go to the military. But what was it like, traveling through a foreign country and hunting down a terrorist? Like, what was that like? Like, just sitting in the back of a Humvee or in the driver's seat, and I know it's pitch fucking black outside. There's no fucking lights. You're riding through a desert. You know what I mean? What was it like? Like, were you nervous that you weren't gonna make it home, or did you when you went into? Because it's like going into battle. If you're getting put in, I seen a picture on you, and this is why I asked. I seen the picture on your Instagram where you captured a known target or whatever, and the only thing I could imagine is that it has to be like when you're in prison and you're getting ready to go into a war with another gang. You know what I mean? It's like the nervousness, like, am I going to make it home? Am I going to make it through this? What was it like for you? Or was it just like crunch time and the adrenaline kicked in and the adrenaline took over?
It was exhilarating, dude, exhilarating. It was a high that I have never felt before, and I'm gonna be honest with you. When I got out of the military, I chased that high, man. I tried to with drugs, with women, with alcohol, with driving fast, with going crazy. I tried to emulate and repeat that exhilaration, right? And there's different phases to it. I was 19 years old. You're trained to go to war. You're trained to do this. You see the Twin Towers come down. They're brainwashing you that Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction and he's a dictator. So, okay, any young dude, any young individual is like a torpedo, man. It's like a torpedo. They got that testosterone, they got that adrenaline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's really, I see no difference between gang members and young military. I'm talking about the mindset, right? Some people just go this
Right.
way, we went this way, right? But you're, in essence, searching and seeking that thrill, that fulfillment, that answer.
Is it safe to call it an adrenaline rush? Like
Yeah,
an
yeah,
adrenaline rush?
adrenaline rush for sure, man.
Okay.
That's what it is, right? So scared. I'm never gonna. Okay, I was scared in prison, right? And you have to be to survive. You have to have a limit of fear, an amount of fear to survive, right? But it cannot be so overbearing or overwhelming where it paralyzes you. Now you're ineffective, right? You're not good to anybody like that. With that being said, when I'm in a Humvee or a armored personnel carrier, I'm with my brothers. I am with my brothers, man. Okay,
Right.
there's friends, there's homies, and these dudes were my brothers, and they will tell you this. And likewise, we would die for each other. That goes without saying. That goes without saying. So you feel that, right? So and I do have my opinions about when they put women into the infantry, and I'm glad I'm able to talk about this because to me it's gonna break that up. Because if you got young men wanting to go kill, and then don't get it twisted. Now, when I say wanting to go kill, wanting to go put in work on behalf of our country, right? Just searching for
Correct.
that. Um, so you got that going for you. You got your young, dumb, and full of you know what. That's why the military goes after youngsters. And you're rolling with your brothers, and they are bad guys, right? Or in essence, without going into politics, right? You just know what you know in front of you. Um,
Right.
so I remember thinking, man, it was like playing hide and go seek, but when with the consequences being death, if that makes sense. Because
Right, like manhunt basically,
when you're kicking in the
with the
door,
consequence being death.
so I did not have a wife, I did not have children. I loved being the number one man through the door, right? Because you stack up, the SWAT team stacks up and they go into a house.
Hmm.
I loved being the number one man because of that adrenaline rush and because I had nothing to lose. My friends had wives, girlfriends, children. I'm not gonna do that to them, right? That's just not gonna happen. Like
Nah.
if that makes sense to
Yeah, no,
you.
I understand. Yeah, you had nothing to lose, and you just went over there to you wanted that rush,
There's
and
a
you got it, and I understand that. I totally understand. Um, a lot of people they live their life seeking that adrenaline rush. Believe it or not, a lot of people live their life, whether it be skydiving, racing their car, racing their motorcycle. They live seeking that adrenaline rush that you're speaking on, or fighting. Some people get
right,
it from fighting. They get
right.
an adrenaline rush. Um, the last question I have for you was being a correction officer, um, being around like, and it's this is from my perspective, so people know that it's not sound as bad. I know there's piece of shit inmates. I know there's inmates that are worst of the worst, pieces of shit that probably don't ever belong on the streets again. You ever had an encounter with one of these inmates to where affected you on the compound as far as communicating with other inmates a certain way that you took a certain approach? You get what I'm saying? Like, you had a bad experience with one inmate to where it just fucked it up for everybody. Because I've been on a compound where there was an officer and he was cool. He was cool. He would do stuff for you. You know, he might bring you some McDonald's or something. But one person fucked it up, and he became the biggest dick on the compound.
I hear
As
what
far as officers,
I hear what you're saying. I hear that story, right? So this was very challenging and very difficult, man. When you identified those inmates, everybody who knows those type of inmates. I'm talking about like dudes that'll give you your word, right? And it's prison. We're taught at the academy, hey, don't trust these inmates. Don't trust them at all. They're all lying to you. They're all liars, right? But there was a lot of times, and I can say that now that I'm out, where a dude gave me his word and followed their word, right? A lot of those, including right up until I left, they would violate that, and man, that would really agitate me because like not I didn't break policy to I kind of went out of my way to
small things. Let them use the phone when phone times cut off or something like that. Small things.
well, they were like an ad seg. They wanted to know why they were an ad seg, and like that is my job anyways, right? But I had other matters to attend to. But like, hey, I'm gonna take my time real quick, even though the sergeant or the officer should be doing this, right? So, man, dude,
Exactly what I'm talking about. You would take your time to go look up their file and see why they're in AdSeg and break it
right.
down to them. Hey, this is why they got you in here. I don't know. I'll talk to classification in the morning. See if
And
they can come talk to you.
And then next thing you know, they're back to their shenanigans. 5 minutes later, that would agitate me. I, I was fairly not perfect. I was not perfect, but I can do a good job of not taking it out on the rest. And
Right.
I'll be honest with you, towards the end, it was difficult for me, man. I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it anymore because the fun was sucked out of it for me. It was just draining. Maybe it was that I have to deal with these knuckleheads over here. These guys seem to be cool. My higher ups are after us. It was just the whole situation, man. But yeah, dude, if you don't got that wherewithal, you can easily lump everybody up into one. That's a stereotype.
Yep. It's a stereotype, and it happens. It happens. You get a bad experience with one, and then you get a stereotype in your head now. But that was basically it, man. It's been good talking to you, brother. I mean, like, it's been interesting.
Likewise, man.
Interesting. You know what I mean? So I definitely look forward to a part two or something. Maybe we could chop it up in the future.
We'll go to your channel, yeah, for sure, man. I learned a lot. The viewers
For
learned a
sure.
lot. Cool. So we'll do that. You want to plug in your site again, your YouTube channel?
Yeah, just type in PNO on YouTube. If you see a ski mask with gold teeth, that's me. On Instagram, it's raw underscore talk 08 RAW underscore talk 08 on Instagram.
Cool, man.
And
So
For sure. We definitely got to link again and see what the viewers got to say. Maybe there's some questions we
Yeah,
missed,
hell
you
yeah,
know?
that'd be cool for sure. So everybody watching, tap into the comments. If we missed a question, shoot it. We'll run it back on his channel. With that, thank you guys. Message for today is we close it out is don't stereotype, right? On any race, gender, affiliation, organization. Because hey, I was a guard once, he was an inmate once, but hey, at the end of the day, we're men, right?
Correct.
So cool, man.